Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden, and we've got lots of interesting NBA news to talk about today. The Lakers are mad at Darvin Ham. The Warriors are mad at Steve Kerr. We're going to get to all of that, but we'll start with a little bit of all-star talk because the first voting returns are in, and there's some very interesting results in here. So we're going to go through a handful of guys who are on the border, and Logan, you'll tell me if for you he's an all-star at this point or not. Let's start with Derrick White. All-star or no, Logan?
I don't think I can put Derrick White on my all-star team, unfortunately, Carson. He's got such a good case because he's such a unique player in his play style. When we think about the complementary role players that are on the cusp of being all-stars, I think your mind harkens back to a guy who's even MVP level in some years, and Shawn Marion, another great wing for the Phoenix Suns, and Mikal Bridges, right? These guys that are hard-nosed, that play really great defense every night, and they're consistently great off-ball, if that's cutting, if that's with the ball in their hands, creating when they need to, out of pick and roll, shooting the ball. Guys like this are really valuable to winning NBA championships. I just don't think I can put a guy like this on my all-star team when they're just guys that have more burdens and have just bigger responsibilities in carrying their offenses to greater heights. Derrick White does have the luxury of playing alongside Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis. I'm just trying to figure out which damn Celtics are going to make my all-star team, Carson,
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go with two. I think I'm going to only put two Celtics on there. I'm kind of debating if it's going to be Kristaps or Jaylen Brown, who my second guy is going to be. I don't think I can put Derrick White on there. He's got one hell of a case, Carson. This year he's shooting 42% on nearly 7 threes a game. He's shooting 44% on catch-and-shoot threes. And the numbers are staggering. The Celtics are nearly 8 points better defensively in terms of defensive rating when Derrick White is out there on the court. And I talk about superstar role players. Derrick White's just that. He's in the 97th percentile of spot-up scores, the 93rd percentile of handoffs, 92nd percentile as a pick-and-roll ball handler, 85th percentile as a cutter. Derrick White is a superstar role player. He is as great of a role player as it comes, but with the depth and all of the talent that we have here in the league today, can I put him over Tyrese Halliburton? I can't. No. Can I put him over Tyrese Maxey? I can't. Can I put him over Damian Lillard? No. The list goes on. Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson. These guys just bear so much more responsibility for the success of their teams, and this is no knock on Derrick White. When I say Derrick White is a superstar role player, and he deserves so many flowers.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about this before the show started, Carson. I wish we could expand the All-Star team to 15 players. I wish we could have a full roster, and so we could get some of these, because the league is so damn talented now. It hurts to not have a guy as talented as D. White there, but I just can't do it. He's super imperative to winning games, but I just can't put him on my team.
I am all in favor of expanding the All-Star game. We have been at 12-man rosters since the 1950s, since there were 8 teams in the league. It doesn't make any sense. Not only are individual team rosters bigger now, the league is 4 times the size, and the talent in a vacuum is richer per capita than ever before. So there are clearly, every single year in the NBA, 30-plus guys, arguably 40 guys, we don't need it to go that far, but who are playing at an all-star level, and to still only reward 24 of them, I don't like. You will normally get a couple more guys in there because of injuries, but still, I think a guy like Derrick White is clearly playing at an all-star level, but he cannot be an all-star this year to me because the backcourt in the East is so ridiculously stacked. When you talk about guys who don't have overwhelming raw production making all-star teams, there absolutely is a precedent for that. I think you went an interesting direction in talking about the precedent because Shawn Marion, he actually did put up pretty big scoring numbers.
21, yeah.
Yeah. And then you named Mikal Bridges, who's never been an all-star. I think perhaps you just had Phoenix Suns on your mind, but I understand what you're saying. The guys who have the versatile, multifaceted impact. Traditionally, it's been often bigs. Great defensive bigs haven't had to put up big scoring numbers because they have that sort of impact on one side of the ball. But then we do see the outstanding role players, forwards, wings, a Draymond Green, perennial all-star. Dennis Rodman, all-star because of his defensive and rebounding impact when he was barely scoring at all. So it's not that you can't reward guys who aren't just carrying the offensive load for a team, who aren't just putting up big numbers. The thing is, this year, there are so many guys who are doing that so well in the East. You named the six. It's Hallie, it's Dame, it's Trey. And some people may push back on Trey because they think no defense and they think the Hawks aren't very good. But he is doing his job offensively at an unbelievably high level. He's putting up 28 points and 11 assists per game on 60% true shooting, leading the number 6 offense in basketball with a team that is not that talented offensively. I can't deny that. Maxey and Brunson are both putting up 26 points, 6.5 assists per game on 59% true shooting for really good teams out east that desperately need that sort of shot creation. Even Mitchell, in a down year by his standards in terms of efficiency, is giving you 28, 6, and 6 on 58% true shooting, carrying a Cavs team that has been down Darius Garland for a long time, that has been down Evan Mobley for a long time. Derrick White in his role is so extremely valuable. 17, 4, and 5 on 66% true shooting, plus 14 on-off number, playing at an all-defense level for arguably the best team in the league, is an incredible winning impact. But if you were to swap the roles, he could not do what Tyrese Maxey does. He could not do what really any of the lead guards who I'm listing can. And that's not that he isn't a good shot creator. You mentioned how great he's been out of pick and roll. He's been an unbelievable pure shooter this year. He is a legitimately good playmaker. But there's just a different level of scoring chops with those guys, largely of playmaking chops as well. And so to me, it is that situational burden that those guys are carrying. I absolutely want to reward winning basketball players like Derrick White. I just don't think there's enough spots this year. Okay, let's go out west, Logan, and let's go to a rookie. All-star or no? Chet Holmgren.
I think Chet Holmgren is an all-star, Carson. I legitimately think that Chet Holmgren's an all-star. I mean, I'll make the case. Like you said, with it's really tough with the Western Conference this year. It is so absurdly tough. And I'll tell you guys how I'm going to lean. Right now, I have Chet Holmgren as an all-star. As we get closer to the all-star game, I think a couple extra external factors are going to come into play. I think one, team record. I think I'm going to lean on the side of, if you're a top 6 seed, I will give a team an extra all-star. You know what I mean? It's going to be tough because the West is so deep. I don't know how the bottom of my Western Conference is going to look, because then I have to debate between LeBron and AD both making it as well, and their team's record isn't reflected in that. It's going to be, what I'm saying is, it's going to be really hard deciding what teams out west get that second all-star, but I think Chet Holmgren makes as good a case as anybody else because how he has transformed the OKC defense. Like, statistically, his numbers don't blow you off the page. He's 17, 8, and 3, but he's doing this on 65% true shooting. He's shooting 41% from behind the arc. He's averaging nearly 3 blocks a night. He's shooting an absurd 45% on catch-and-shoot three-point attempts this year. The Thunder overall are 6th in defensive rating, and, I mean, he's one of the best shot blockers in all of the NBA right now. He's holding players 10.4% below their average field goal percentage inside 6 feet on 9.4 shots defended per game. Minimum 6 shots defended per game. It's the 11th best mark in the NBA. And Chet's just such an awesome complimentary guy with what he can do off ball, with the ball out of his hands. He is special with it in his hands because he is a really fluid athlete. And he's got a really great handle for a guy his size. But he's a 98th percentile cutter this year. Again, I mentioned how great he is off ball as a shooter, as a screen setter. With the ball in his hands, he's an 83rd percentile isolation scorer and a 65th percentile pick and roll ball handler. I just think that he's a really good complementary off-ball piece to a guy who is one of the best on-ball scorers in the league in SGA offensively. So he's got a really complementary skill set there. And then defensively, I mean, I think he's already one of the best interior defenders in all of basketball and has transformed this Thunder defense. I do want to be clear. I think it's a conglomerate here. I think the Thunder just play so freaking hard every night. Lou Dort on the perimeter, SGA, Jalen Williams, like all of these guys. That's always been a staple of the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is so uncharacteristic for a young roster that they play so hard. And so I want to give the totality of the Thunder their credit for this defense. But without Chet, they're nowhere close to this level. And so because Chet is dominating on his side of the floor, he's being productive offensively, and it is leading to victories for the Thunder, who I think are a legitimate contender. Yeah, I will give Chet Holmgren an all-star nod as a rookie. I don't think it's that preposterous. And there's other good Western Conference big men. It's going to be tough. Sengun, Wembanyama, Cat, Anthony Davis, like I mentioned, Domas. Like, it's really stiff competition, but I think Chet Holmgren has earned it.
Interesting. This is a situation to me where, just like Derrick White, you have a guy playing at an all-star level. And I just want to reiterate, there is nothing that I would love more than to reward dudes who I think are just epitomizing winning basketball. Elite offensive efficiency, elite defensive level, doing various things for their team. With Chet, you get a level of playmaking that is uncommon from a big period and certainly a rookie. But the West front court is loaded. Same conversation that we had about Derrick White. There are 6 possible spots in that Eastern Conference backcourt because the way that all-star selection works is you have 4 backcourt spots, 6 front court spots, 2 wildcard spots. I think there are 6 guards in the East who make better cases than Derrick White. When we go to the West, I think that there are, again, 6 guards who probably belong in this conversation just because they're playing at such a high level. And then in the front court, you have Jokic, AD, LeBron, KD, Kawhi. All of those guys are bona fide locks over Chet. You agree with that?
One more time. You said LeBron, Kawhi, AD, who?
Jokic, KD. You can't make an argument for Chet over any of those guys. They've all been too available. They're all simply carrying a totally different level of offensive load. I mean, those guys are playing exceptional basketball across the board.
Yeah, the only dude I would think about is KD. That's the only guy I would think about just for a moment.
I don't think you can make that case, man. KD's been an efficient 30 a night, playmaking well. It's just in another stratosphere. It's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
He's a top 10 player on the planet.
And
Chet's
it's tough
doing the winning stuff, but there are levels to this. And then
that's what's
after
tough
that,
about the responsibility aspect is just the big difference maker.
right? And because in a league where guys are maybe carrying these offensive loads, but they aren't so damn good at it, and they aren't efficient, and they aren't actually leading to good basketball, that's when you have an opportunity to reward the guys who have less of a load, but are just excelling in terms of this winning impact. The problem in today's NBA is these lead offensive guys, there's too many of them who are just studs. Because then after those 5 locks, we get into PG, who is doing more offensively, who's having a really, really good season, who's had a significant winning impact for a really good basketball team. Then you do have a Sabonis, who's having a really great regular season for a really good basketball team. Sengun, I think, is honestly more deserving of a spot than Chet right now because he is carrying a heavier load and is clearly the best player on a team that is really overachieving and is somehow in the playoff picture, the Houston Rockets, which we wouldn't have anticipated. Their team defense maybe is like the single driving factor, but offensively, it's Sengun by a mile. Then you have Cat, who is balling out in a number 2 role and is clearly the better offensive player than Chet right now.
Wow.
Chet's better defensively, but Cat's playing really well on that side of the ball.
I'm
then
sorry,
you
all
have
these-
Lowry Markkanen.
All of these guys are over Chet to you.
Arguably, the point is that I'm naming 11 dudes. There's 12 all-star spots on the entire team. And we haven't even gotten into the backcourt where, again, you have SGA, Luka, Steph, you have Devin Booker, you have De'Aaron Fox, you have Anthony Edwards, you have James Harden. It's just too loaded of a group, in my opinion, to reward a guy who isn't at that bona fide star level offensively yet. I mean, his efficiency is unbelievable. His skill is so great. He just doesn't have that level of burden at this point.
I completely understand that. And, that's not, you didn't even mention Wemby, did you?
Wemby, I don't think has a case.
Well, I'm just saying, they're still, to me, those 2 players, Wemby and Chet, are both in the same tier to me in terms of,
if you're looking at this
consideration.
season, production does matter. It can't just be about, okay, what level are they at as talents? Defensively, they've been absolutely on par with each other.
Saying, yeah.
There's a case that Wemby's been even better. But Chet, and you can credit situation to this to some extent, has just been so much more efficient offensively. He has been playing basketball on that side of the ball that is so much more cohesive to winning.
Yeah. This is the dilemma because I really want to reward winning basketball. You're right. The West is...
The West is bro.
It's super deep, and I would right now, because I was going through the front court. This was probably the toughest decision. I was thinking, LeBron, AD, Kawhi. I don't know, and then I was probably going Domas, Markkanen. I guess KD. It's so tough, man.
Yeah.
I really want to reward Chet. Like I said, because we're not there yet, because we got still, about a month to go before, we're really concretely there. It's going to come down to availability for a lot of these guys. I want guys who have played the majority of the season, and it's going to come down to a lot of where these teams are record-wise, because I want to reward the better teams with multiple all-star appearances. I just think that's the smarter way to go about it.
It's hard, man. It's hard because if you're going to reward teams,
so let me ask you this:
guys,
can say the Lakers don't have a dramatic turnaround? They are sitting at the 10 seed. LeBron and AD are still both locks to you if they're the 10 seed.
Absolutely, because there's no question that both those guys are playing significantly better basketball than Chet Holmgren.
I think so too. It's so weird. The Lakers are such a weird team.
It's rare that you just have the opportunity to reward a team for being great and throw in an all-star. Like, right, Mike Conley with the Jazz a couple years ago.
The Hawks. Yeah, the Hawks with their 4 all-stars.
Yeah, you just don't have an opportunity to do that when the league is this stacked. And I want to be clear, I think that Chet has an argument for the most impactful rookie when you are talking about contributing to a really good team of this century. We've only seen 2 rookie all-stars since 2000. Blake was the last one back in 2011. That was a grown man physically, right? He was so impactful immediately because of that. But at the same time, he was the number 1 on a not-so-good team. When you're talking about number 2s on great teams who are this great immediately, Chet might be the best of this century. But unfortunately, this year the league is so good that that doesn't just make you an all-star. Okay, one of the most interesting things from the early returns, Logan, is that Devin Booker was not even on the list that they show for Western Conference guards. They go 10 deep, and you have Austin Reeves, who, of course, has the Laker fans behind him. You have Klay Thompson, who has Dub Nation. You have Ja, who has, I suppose, the NRA maybe. And there's no Book. Is he an all-star to you?
That was a good one, bro.
Thanks, man.
I think Devin Booker is an all-star. It's so tough because you mentioned a lot of the guys that you got to put him over. SGA, Luka, Curry, Fox, and Ant to me are all more deserving of an all-star nod than Devin Booker. SGA and Luka, arguably the 2 best guards in the league today. Steph Curry, I'm still not willing to count out of that conversation. Ant has helped lead the Timberwolves to the number 1 seed out west. Fox is putting up an efficient 30 points per game, is playing some of the best basketball of his career. And then Demi Carson. And maybe this is the wrong way of judging players and their abilities. Like, for example, the Clippers, right? James Harden and the Clippers have a better record right now. Mm-hmm. When it came down to it, I asked myself, which one of these guys would I rather have, and who do I think is just a better player? Well, I think Devin Booker is just a better player than a James Harden. I think Devin Booker is just a flat-out better player than the other guys that are on this list. And so for that last guard spot, I think I probably would give it to Devin Booker just because I think he's in that upper echelon of players. I want the best players in the world on the All-Star team. Obviously, within the context, the scope of this season matters more than anything else because we were judging it on this season. But with Devin Booker's body of work and what he's done consistently, I think he has to be considered a top 10 player. Booker this season, 27-5-8 on 60% true shooting. He's shooting 39% on just over 5 three-point attempts per game. He's shooting 41% off the catch from deep on just under 2 attempts per game. They're 15-10 with Booker. They're 3-6 without him. He is making them 10 points better offensively when he is on the floor versus when he's not on. And he's still just one of the best flat-out all-around scorers in the league. He's running his playmaking chops this time. Games with KD out, games with Beal out. Booker can really bear that responsibility of playmaker. He's grown in that respect. He's just a completely unstoppable bucket. And that is why I would go with him over a guy like James Harden. With James Harden's limitations as a scorer at this point in his career, and I know he can be efficient, he can shoot well, he can be great off the catch, he can still dictate out of pick and roll. There's just a different level of isolation scoring to me and takeover ability and just all-around impact with Booker that I just don't get with Harden. I just think Devin Booker, the team impact may not be there with this team, but I think Harden's in a better situation too. I just think Devin Booker is the better player, and I want the best players out there. Right now, I would have D-Book as an all-star in the Western Conference.
Agreed. And again, you could only have 6 guard spots, but I as of today, would use all 6 spots that I can for guards in both conferences. Both of my wild card spots would go to guards just because the level of guard play in the NBA right now is unbelievably high. I don't disagree with any of the dudes who you had above, Book. I think that they've all had better seasons. Luka, SGA, Steph, De'Aaron Fox, and Ant. There's a question of, in a vacuum, who has been the better basketball player this year, but Ant's been on the much better team. He's been more available, so I would give him the nod above Book. But for that 6th spot, the guy is having a quote-unquote down year, and as you said, he's averaging 27 points and 8 assists per game on 60% true shooting for a team that's been significantly better with him on the floor. He's been a 92nd percentile pick-and-roll creator. He is at the highest level as a playmaker and therefore overall offensive engine that we've seen him. Even if it's been a bit of a down mid-range shooting year for him, he's shooting a career-best 78% at the rim, a career-best 39% from deep. He's just that level of basketball player. He's a top 10 player on the planet. He's missed a few games. He hasn't been at his absolute apex, although he started the year there, but then he cooled down for a bit. But it's still Book. He's playing at the level, to me, where he is stamped as an all-star. Okay, let's go to another guy from Chet's class, Logan. Paolo Banchero, all-star or no?
I don't think Paolo's an all-star. This one's tough, too, man. I think... Orlando's really good defensively this season. I think that has a lot to do with this collective, the effort that you get from the guards. Jalen Suggs is an absolute dog as a point of attack guy. All of these guys play super hard. They've been without Jonathan Isaac, too, which to me, Carson, is going to be insane, man. If we can get playoff time, like the Magic are just a long athletic team.
Let's just pump the brakes on ever expecting healthy Jonathan Isaac. That's all I'm saying.
Jonathan Isaac still right now is number 1 in terms of field goal differential inside 6 feet.
He's a monster.
I think that takes him up such another level, having that kind of size, that kind of athleticism and physicality throughout their roster. Long, big wings like Paolo, Franz, Wendell Carter Jr., Isaac. It's like a monster mash team, man. It's just a monster-sized squad. But... that to me is why I can't make Paolo an all-star for me out east. This is a collective team effort for the Orlando Magic and why they're great defensively. And then offensively, I look at his skill set. In the front court above Paolo, and I do think the East is a little more open than the West, Tatum, Giannis, and Embiid, I think, are all concrete locks. And then when I look outside that, if I'm looking at other guys that I'm going to go with, I probably prefer Kristaps Porzingis. I probably prefer Bam Adebayo. And then I'm debating like Paolo and Jimmy Butler, and I just don't think I could give it to Paolo over Jimmy. And there's other guys that I want to look into too. A guy like Scotty Barnes. Paolo's on the cusp. Paolo is really, really close. And like I said, we're still a month out. There are things that can change. I just don't think Paolo is as offensively skilled as a Kristaps. I don't think he's in the same tier as the other guys that I mentioned, the Tatums, the Giannis's, the Embiids. It's really the offensive gap for me. And it's going to be close, like I said. But I prefer Kristaps. I prefer Bam. And I would debate between him and Scotty at this point in the season. I'd probably lean Paolo just because of winning impact. But I concretely prefer 5 guys, and I'm debating another 2. Things can change with a month to go before we are locked on all-star teams. But right now, I would tentatively say Paolo's probably not going to be on the all-star team for me, but I think Paolo would be one of my first 2 guys off.
I agree. I just think there's too many quality names here. You mentioned the guys who maybe are in that same tier. I would say because they've missed like 10 games in all the cases, if it's Bam, if it's Jimmy, if it's KP, but I think all of their game-to-game impact has been greater. When you consider the two-way impact from all of those guys where they're stellar, I do think if you're looking at the young dudes who are just playing at a really high level, Scotty, of course the Raptors suck, but he does not bear responsibility for that. The shooting leap that we've seen from him has been phenomenal. I think as a playmaker, he has been at least as good, if not better, than Paolo. Defensively, he has been outstanding. Like Scotty is hooping. He makes a legit case. Hilariously, Logan, even Julius Randle was not top 10 in all-star voting. How does that happen from a New York Knick? How does that happen for a New York Knick, though?
it's Julius Randle. I don't think the Knicks fans even like Julius Randle.
I love that. It fires me up. I do think there's a case that Randall's been better this year. Paolo is so promising. The level that he is playing at for a second-year player is so impressive. I just still think compared to these bona fide all-star level dudes, when you are talking about the Bams and the Jimmys of the world and the Jaylen Browns, those are just grown men. Those are veterans who have been playing basketball at this star level for years. Paolo, there's still too many inefficiencies in terms of shot selection.
Yep.
I think there's still too many inconsistencies in terms of playmaking and defensive effort. The Magic have actually been 12 points per 100 possessions worse with him out there. Now, of course, I don't think that's reflective of the level that he's at as a basketball player, but it shows that he is not night in, night out driving, winning in the same way that some of these other guys are. I honestly think you could make a case that Franz Wagner deserves to be an all-star over Paolo. They are certainly at least on the exact same plane. So Paolo's awesome. It's just crazy hard to be an all-star as a second-year player in today's NBA, and I don't think that he's quite there. Okay, last one, Logan, who you hinted at a bit. All-star or no, James Harden.
Big respect to what James Harden has done this season, how he has gelled with his team, how great he has made the Clippers offensively, and they've been on a really great run. But it is what I alluded to earlier. I just can't put a guy above a guy like Devin Booker. I can't put James Harden above Devin Booker, just in terms of their skill sets right now and what they can do on a night-to-night basis. They're not in the same tier to me as a player. I respect what James Harden does on a nightly basis. He can set up his teammates. He doesn't really disrupt the flow of the offense. And slowly but surely, it has been a slow climb because James Harden really used to be pound the rock dribble man until the ball was out of air. You know, James can bounce that ball. James Harden has become a legitimately good point guard. He's become unselfish. He's a good decision maker. He's like night to night, Harden just takes that offense out of rhythm less. And because he's in a situation like LA, the burden is not as much on his shoulders. It's, hey, hit Kawhi curling around a screen. Hey, hit PG off ball when he can get a screen and go to work. His job really is simplified, and he plays his job really well. But it's like kind of like what you said about Derrick White. You know, if I put Harden in a situation in Phoenix where he has to do way more offensively, and again, he can still set up Beal and KD. It's similar, but he would have much more of a scoring burden there. He would have much more of a, again, night-to-night burden of carrying an offense that I just don't think he can do at this point. Devin Booker, to me, is just concretely the better basketball player. No disrespect to James Harden. I didn't really see him ever being this efficient again. And if the Clippers keep dominating like this, hear me out. I mean, if they can get to a top 3 seed, I'll revisit his case. And maybe Harden will sneak into there. But he's not a top 2 all-star in his team for me. And he's not one of the top 6 guards out in the Western Conference. I just think there's a massive gap between guys like him, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, all the other guards that we've already listed. To me, there's way too big of a gap. And again, he's not the second best all-star in his team. So credit to James Harden, what he's done this season. I can't put him on my team.
I agree. I'm not sure that there's room for any team to have 3 all-stars. If it's going to be anybody in the league, it would have to be the Celtics. And then, right, Derrick White in the backcourt, probably not enough spots. You might have to choose between KP or Jaylen in the front court. Harden has been really good, though. I want to give him props, and we're going to talk about the Clippers in totality more later. His efficiency has been unbelievable. 66% true shooting, best of his career. Shooting a career best percentage at the rim and from 3. He's been 43% from deep this year, 41% on step backs. Unbelievably efficient across play types, 82nd percentile pick and roll creator, 91st percentile isolation, 88th percentile spot up, and he has just been brutalizing teams where he's getting their second or third best perimeter defenders. That's a luxury that for most of his career Harden hasn't had. So that aids his scoring efficiency. They have great spacing in LA, so he's able to attack with really favorable spacing. And then he's been really unselfish. He's done a nice job facilitating the offense. I think he has good chemistry with his whole team, good synergy with the role men, Zubats particularly. I think that he plays well with the other stars. He's even competing defensively, which we haven't been able to see from Harden much throughout his career. I just think there's already 6 spots taken by guards in the West, and his role is less demanding than all of theirs. If you did plop him in the situation that Book has been in, not now that Bradley Beal is healthy, because that's only been the case for a few games, where it is just him and KD being burdened with creating offense every single possession for their team, I think there's no question that Book has done better in that role than James Harden. Everybody else who we're talking about is either like by far the best player on their team, or at the very least a top 2 player. Harden isn't there. And so, although the efficiency has been really good and I've liked the adjustment that he makes, it's just really, really tough sledding to make an all-star team this year in either conference, but especially in that Western Conference backcourt. College football fans, the championship is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook is making sure you can throw down on the epic showdown for a shot at big bucks. New customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting $5 on the championship game.
Download the app now and use code NERDS. New customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on college football. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code NERDS. The crown is yours.
So I mentioned earlier that the Lakers are apparently having a rift between Darvin Ham and their locker room. Do you think LA needs to move on from him as head coach?
No, I don't think that's the right move at this point in the season. And you're right, it is being heavily reported. Shams reported it. Jovan Buha, who goes on Hoops Tonight with Jason a lot, they've been covering the situation in depth. 6 sources reportedly, with direct knowledge of the situation, they've chosen to remain anonymous, say that this is really heavily due to the extreme rotation and starting lineup adjustments recently from Darvin Ham. Surprise, surprise. I mean, if you've watched the games, if you were tuned in or plugged in to Lakers basketball at all, you've made the same observation as everybody else. What is going on with this team? They do seem disjointed. They seem out of chemistry, and I can't blame the players for being frustrated too, right? I mean, it has to mess with you as a player night to night. I mean, you get 28 minutes one night, say you shoot, 6 of 8, you're feeling yourself. You got the stroke going from deep, you're feeling it. Next game, you sit the bench. Well, obviously, you're going to be thrown out of rhythm, and that's been the trend, man. If it's, Austin Reeves sporadically being benched, if it's Hachimura or D'Lo, and their minutes fluctuating or varying night to night, it's been really weird. Some of the lineup choices where he's running with my theoretical all-defense lineup that we never thought would see the light of day. Vando, Prince, Reddish, LeBron, and AD. I mean, just an absurd conglomerate there. No offense. Again, that was Darvin Ham's decision. So you can understand the frustrations here. The point has been, and this was a big focus of mine preseason when I anticipated the Lakers making a championship push at the end of this year, a big point of this regular season was to build continuity and rapport with this team. We discussed this in depth last year, Carson. To make all these moves that the Lakers did at the trade deadline last year and then to go on and win a championship would have set a new precedent. From where the team started, they were 2-10 at the beginning of last season. Had one of the most dramatic individual in-season team turnarounds that we'd ever seen, and they had an overhaul at the deadline. We said from the jump after they made those moves, it's going to be really hard to win a title. When you started from so far low, and when you make so many roster changes in the middle of the season, it's just going to be hard. It's never been done before. A big point of this season was to get these guys to build a rapport with each other, to have this continuity and chemistry. And Darvin Ham just kind of points this to the health. He claims the Lakers won't find consistency until they're fully healthy, which I don't really understand because they're not that far away from being fully healthy. If LeBron or AD were missing time, maybe I would understand that. The reason I say they shouldn't fire Darvin Ham is because I just think it would cause a little too much turmoil at this point of the season. I just don't think the Lakers and their already fragile locker room and environment could handle a firing at this point. I just think there's too many moving pieces. I think this would just cause too much drama. If you're going to do that, Lakers, I suggest make LeBron head coach, make LeBron GM, and make LeBron the owner, Jackie Moon style, and just lean fully into it. Let LeBron just run your organization top to bottom. They have not been good, Carson. They've got 9 losses in 12 games. They're 3-9 since winning the in-season tournament. They're 24th in offensive rating. They're 18th in defensive rating. They're 23rd in net rating. I think there are some external factors to the lineup and the Darvin Ham drama. I think effort night to night. The defensive number I just gave, 18th, is a little too low for a team that has Anthony Davis. I just think supporting pieces, effort, possession to possession wanes and waxes. They're 23rd in rebounds per game. I think that points to effort. And then shooting. They're 26th in three-point percentage over the last 12 games as well. Guys just aren't hitting open looks. I think it's those three things. I think it's effort, I think it's shooting, and I think Darvin Ham does bear some responsibility, but it's inexcusable when your two stars are playing at this high of a level. AD is 30, 12, and 14 on 54, 45, 77 splits with a steal.
30, 12, and 4, I assume you mean.
Yeah. What did I say?
30, 12, and 14. I was about to say,
excuse me.
Damn, AD.
Those are Jokic numbers. Anthony Davis has not ascended to Jokic tier yet. 30, 12, and 4 on 58, 45, 77 splits, 1.5 steals per game, 2.5 blocks per game. LeBron is adding in 25, 7, and 9 on 48, 37, 83 splits with over a steal a game. It's just inexcusable for them to be this poor over the last 12 games with how their superstars are playing. Like I said, I think there are some other external factors, but Darvin Ham does bear a major responsibility for this stretch. That being said, I don't think it's in the Lakers' best interest to rock the boat with an in-season firing of their head coach.
I'm not sure how much that rocks the boat, to be honest. We have seen LeBron James recover from a mid-season firing, David Blatt back in 2016, and then win the NBA title that same season. I don't think that Darvin Ham really does anything to elevate this team's basketball ceiling. I would be willing to try something else. And you joke about making LeBron the Jackie Moon of this organization, but I honestly think when it comes to seeing the game in real time, to making in-game adjustments, I think that he is brilliant enough, and I think that he certainly has the presence within this team to be entrusted with those kind of decisions.
Do you think there's a disconnect between Darvin and LeBron, too?
I do think so. Yeah, I mean, LeBron is in his ultimate subtweeting mode. Like, how many press conferences have there been where it's something's not right here, we got to figure something out? I don't think this report comes out with this sort of backing if LeBron James is not on board with it. I think that he has that sort of influence. And it's not just how good he and AD have been, Logan. Austin Reeves has been awesome as well since a down start. And they've been exceptionally healthy at the top of their roster. Darvin Ham needs to get his head out of his ass, bro. There have been guys on the periphery who have been injured, but when your core guys are healthy like this, and they're old, and they've been injury prone in recent years, that's fortunate in today's NBA. The Miami Heat, their guys have both missed a third of the season each, and guess what? They're still plugging along and winning basketball games, and he literally said that he thought it was more significant to have role players out than to have a Jimmy Butler out after they lost to the Heat. That's ridiculous. You're sitting below 500 right now when those guys have been available and have been playing at an awesome level. I just don't think Darvin Ham is a good basketball coach. The lineup stuff to me is genuinely mind-boggling. Let's just go through the progression of events here. Step one is to put Austin Reeves, who is clearly this team's third best basketball player, on the bench in favor of D'Angelo Russell starting, who is an inferior player with a similar skill set. So you are eliminating the redundancies, but you're saying, I'll take the worst version of this secondary shot creator, a guy who's not as good as off ball, who doesn't understand his role as much, who doesn't compete as hard as my starter. Step two, then, is to negate any of the value that you get from taking those two out of the same lineup, putting a shot creator alongside an athletic, defensively oriented guard, so you can send D'Lo to the bench with Reeves, knowing they don't play together, knowing either way that they are both better basketball players than a backcourt of Cam Reddish and Jared Vanderbilt. And now you have a starting quote-unquote backcourt, if you can even call it that, with zero offensive skill. And then step three, the nail in the coffin is when Cam Reddish misses a couple games, you don't say, all right, Austin, why don't you come back in and start? You insert Rui Hachimura into this comical jumbo starting lineup. It is so unorthodox. It is so inexplicable that I legitimately racked my brain and thought, what could be the reason behind this? Because this is so 13-year-old on 2K doesn't understand what he's doing, is just not even looking at overalls. The overalls aren't even higher. You are putting worse basketball players who also fit worse in your starting lineup. Who else in the league this year has changed their starting five like this repeatedly, right? Made these little adjustments, God knows why, and made both the talent and fit worse. That's not NBA head coaching stuff. That shouldn't be able to happen. And to me, it just indicates that this is a guy who doesn't understand his personnel, And he's messing with the continuity. It feels like he's screwing around with this lineup just because why not? But it's not good for your team. It's not good for your confidence. It's not good for your rhythm. It's not good for your continuity and your chemistry. You also talk about the fact that the Lakers just often nights don't play with effort, and that's the thing that has plagued them in recent years because LeBron is 39 years old and he can't care about every regular season game. But Darvin Ham certainly isn't getting them up to play. Like, their effort sucks as much as anybody in the league. They are a bad transition defense. They allow teams to get out and run a lot, and when they do get out and run, they score very efficiently. Despite being massive, this team is just 20th in rebound rate still. And part of that is this tactical approach of we're not going to crash the offensive glass so that we can get back on defense. But their transition defense has sucked. So where's the payoff? There's no payoff there. And they start every single game so slow. So the lineup stuff, he's awful with. The motivation does not seem to be there. And then once you are hearing this guy's lost the locker room, you have 6 different sources, half the players on your team who matter potentially, saying, yeah, we just don't vibe with this guy. We don't think that he's the guy. If LeBron is in that group, then to me, it's over. I think that it could actually be an energizing move saying, okay, let's move off of Darvin Ham and let's go in another direction, because I don't think he's doing anything positive for this basketball team right now.
You know, and from an outsider, Carson, I've liked Darvin Ham because of his story. Darvin Ham was an undrafted guy from a JUCO university. He had to transfer to Texas Tech just to go to college. He goes to the NBA. He's undrafted. He plays 9 seasons in the NBA. He wraps it up by winning a championship with the Detroit Pistons. This is a guy who knows what it takes to win a championship with a conglomerate. That's why it's also so head-scratching that a guy that has worked so freaking hard just to get here, to last that long in the NBA, to win a title, to become a head coach. It's a success story. But I think you're right. I mean, this is his first time as a head coach, right? This is his first head coaching gig ever, right?
Yeah.
It does seem like Ham has some growing pains to work out as a young coach that the Lakers just don't have time for.
Yeah.
You know, they need a guy who has more experience, who knows what he's doing, who just has more of an identity like my roommate said it jokingly earlier when we were talking about the drama because this news just broke. He said Ty Lue, and my boy's a Lakers fan. So he goes, man, I'd kill for Ty Lue. I would kill somebody if we got Ty Lue. And I'm like, you might be onto something.
Yeah.
You know what, man? You might be right. We have seen that trend in recent years. Like, take example, and this is, I don't know if this is the best example, but the Raiders this year, right? They fired Josh McDaniels. They're energized by a guy like Antonio Pierce coming in. Maybe that is what it's going to take to rally this team, man, and to rally the troops. Is there anybody, Carson? I know we said that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, somewhat facetiously about LeBron becoming the head coach. Are there any other candidates that you like that are on the market that the Lakers could get? Should they rock with LeBron as the interim head coach? Like, what other options do you think the Lakers should explore if they do pull the trigger on cutting Ham loose?
Well, we're hearing the Doc Rivers reports, and I have a feeling that Doc Rivers is about to become the new Mark Jackson, guy who just like everybody objectively agrees, okay, this guy had glaring weaknesses as an NBA coach, and then he becomes an announcer. And of course, Doc is a more accomplished head coach, far more so than Mark Jackson, but like it was pretty ugly the last few years. But he's a big name and he's on TV.
No,
I don't think that they should go for Doc Rivers whatsoever. Honestly, Logan, I don't think that it matters all that much. I don't think that it has to be a big name guy. I mean, it would be really weird to actually hire somebody from outside the team mid-season. You almost always are just going to promote a lead assistant. There are good basketball coaches out there who are currently not hired. Mike Budenholzer isn't an NBA head coach, but I think the most important thing for a Lakers head coach or for the head coach of a LeBron team, you don't have to be some sort of brilliant offensive mind, because at the end of the day, LeBron is going to dictate your offense in all of the meaningful stretches. You have to be a really good people person so that LeBron likes you, the locker room likes you, they're motivated to play for you. I think that you do actually have to have the rotations down because LeBron isn't your literal head coach. He is not literally deciding who is going in and coming out of the game from the bench. And that's not the toughest thing to be good at. Darvin Ham has just been exceptionally bad at it. And then you go from there. And I just don't think that Darvin Ham is able to even execute the basic stuff. I don't think that he has given this team a consistent identity on either side of the ball. He's just been really bad. And sometimes that happens. It's not easy for your first head coaching job to be with LeBron James. Didn't go too well for Luke Walton. Like, the bar is high there, and I just don't think Darvin Ham is at that bar right now.
Everybody loves making sports predictions, but there's a new app putting a whole new spin on the game. Check out Vaulted, that's spelled VLTED, Vaulted. It's an app where you can track sports predictions and participate in daily cash prize pools. You can also show off your sports knowledge against your friends, your buddies, by your boldest takes, challenging your friends to see who makes the best picks. You can challenge every week in my weekly Colin Cowherd NFL pool. Do that, win money, real money. All you have to do is answer questions and risk confidence points. VLTED, Vaulted app, Vaulted Challenge. So download the Vaulted app right now, VLTED. The QR code is right there on the screen. Prove you're smarter than your friends and get the Vaulted app today. Really easy and fun to play.
But you know who is a more proven head coach, Logan, who is getting all the flack and perhaps even more that Darvin Ham is? Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors, who just lost another mind-blowing game to the Nuggets. They're up 18 with 6 minutes left. They fumble that lead away, and then Jokic hits a near half quarter to beat them at the buzzer. Are the Warriors actually cursed, Logan?
They do have some demons to exercise. I don't know what they are. There does feel like a little bit of a black cloud following Golden State, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I will say, I called that game last night, and I'm so mad at myself for not slapping a cool 20 down on the Joker to snap that lead back, man. I'm watching the games with my roommates, and I go, I said, hey, guys, are y'all trying to throw a quick 10 on the Nuggets to win this game? They're down 12-14 at this point. Both of my roommates look at me and laugh at me. They laugh in my face. They say, are you serious? I said, yes, the Nuggets have the two best players in the clutch. I will take Jokic and Murray to do some damage right now. I wasn't surprised at the comeback. I was surprised that that lead evaporated so quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think Steve Kerr's in a really tough spot. The Golden State Warriors, we've noted this crossroads that they have found themselves at, this impasse organizationally with two different cores. The young core that they want to grow with into the future, post-Steph, post-Clay, post-Dre, post-Wiggs. And they're balancing it out with the veterans, the guys that I just mentioned. It's really hard because the Warriors have so many talented basketball players, and there's only 8 to 10 rotational spots on a given night that you can give the guys. I mean, hear me out. Given rotation, nightly basis with a healthy Draymond, Steph, Clay, Wiggs, Dre, Looney, Paul, B-Pod, TJD, Moody, Kuminga, Saric. Like, it really is just tough to figure out how to give these guys all minutes because Kuminga's playing his ass off. TJD is playing his ass off. B-Pod is playing his ass off. All these guys are playing great, and it's hard to figure out like when to give guys burn, when to not. Mm-hmm. I do think it was a mistake to take Kuminga out with how he was playing, and I understand that is kind of given some of this rift. Kuminga comes out and, I didn't understand that, especially with how Kuminga's been playing this entire year, how great he's been defensively, the hustle plays, the effort, the energy, how he's crashed the glass offensively. He gets a ball and spot up, and he's getting into the lane so physically, so strong. I mean, you see it. Like, I think Kuminga's going to be a stud with what I've seen this year. At the athletic flashes, how he's weaponized it, how easily he gets into the lane. Like, Kuminga's just a hard guy to stay in front of with all of his physical and athletic advantages. I don't know what the solution is, Carson. I don't know what the solution is for the Warriors. There is one thing I want to hammer home. I don't know what the answer is for Golden State. I want to be clear about something on my stance. Charles Barkley, anytime the Warriors play a game and lose, or anytime they play a game and they go to half, Charles goes, the Warriors done, their window is closed, they're completely cooked. The Warriors are not cooked. And frankly, if you count out the Warriors, I think you're dumb. I think you were dumb for counting out a team led out by Stephen Curry and all these veteran basketball players that are so accomplished. I'm not counting out the Golden State Warriors by any means. The bench is great. I think they can reach a decent defensive ceiling, and I think Clay and Wiggins have hit their stride. They're going to get Draymond back, and they still have Stephen Curry, who is one of the handful of best players on planet Earth. I just don't know why you would count out the Golden State Warriors. Like, I think people make great points when we talk negatively about the Warriors. There's something going on with Steve Kerr in this locker room, and they are not all together, and they are always on a nightly basis going to be physically outsized, outmatched, and out-athletic by most teams in the Western Conference. But can they win a playoff series? Yes. Can they win 2 playoff series? Yes. The Golden State Warriors' goose is not cooked. I think they can.
Hold on. Without making a move, you think they can win 2 playoff series?
No.
Okay.
They need to make a move, for sure. They need to make a move, and they have a surplus of assets to get that move done. With how this bench is playing and the young guys, yeah, man, cut the rotation. Cut a young guy and cut CP. Attach a pick and figure out what you can do to upgrade to get better. My bottom line is there's smoke. There's probably fire in the Warriors locker room. I'm not counting them out, and I think you're dumb if you count the Warriors out.
Yeah. I do think that they're cursed, though. I think they have been cursed by the great warlock Volgamir. This is a theory that I've started to formulate. Volgamir. He's one of the 8 great wizards of the old world.
Wasn't that
and
your...
He boasts a tremendous staff.
I thought it was your grandpa.
Close. It's close to my grandfather's name, that being Velimir. Perhaps they grew up together in the old country. I can't say. But I believe that one of the Warriors, and I'm looking at Andrew Wiggins, stole Volgamir's great staff, and that he has therefore cursed them hence. And I believe, Logan, and I've explained this all on a TikTok, that they will have to travel to Volgamir's realm, and then, as he lives in absolute solitude, offer him up a lifelong companion. And I think that Kevon Looney makes the most sense there, because he sort of has old world features. I think that perhaps he could remind Volgamir of one of the giants that he grew up with. And also, really, with the level that TJD's playing at, I think they can afford to give Loon up.
Well, you know who originally stole Volgamir's staff, right?
Who was that?
It's O.J. Simpson.
Oh, see? You don't want to mess with any of the 8 great warlocks of the old world. I'm telling you. And it's not just one generation. I know what you're thinking, oh, blasted, they've cursed this one generation. No, oftentimes it descends into a full-on blood war. And the Warriors may never win another meaningful basketball game. And Steph Curry may never, ever beat the Steph isn't clutch narratives, which are false. They're false. But guess what? Once Volgamir's curse is upon you, God be with you. So they have to deal with that. But Steve Kerr certainly isn't helping them either. And perhaps he's under some sort of fool spell, because he has just made so many rotational mistakes this season. And you are right in the sense that it's tough sometimes with this Warriors rotation because the gaps between guys just aren't that big, right? Coming into this year, Andrew Wiggins was supposed to be one of your 3 best players. Jonathan Kuminga was a work in progress, question mark, what's he really going to look like? All of a sudden, Jonathan Kuminga most nights of the year is better than Andrew Wiggins. And you have all of these young guys who are outperforming the old guys, but on any night, you don't know who is going to be the best player. That is a conundrum that not many teams face like this. At the same time, it's just taken Steve too long to find the right guys this year. If you look at Pods, who it was just super evident from the moment that he set foot on the floor, boy, this guy's awesome. This guy's a really good rookie. And there were games early in the year where Corey Joseph would play over him, and he just didn't get enough minutes. And then Trace Jackson-Davis, who immediately you could tell, okay, he adds a dimension that the Warriors haven't had at the 5 with his athleticism and his rim protection. And he was only in like those emptying bench units for a long time. And he was in the G League for a time. And now those guys are getting the minutes that they deserve. But it took Steve a while to get there. He's consistently closed with weird groups. Early in the year, he was adamant on CP3 closing when he just doesn't call the other starters. And he's a guy who needs the ball and is going to be a defensive liability. And then you've had the individual instances. There was that one game I can remember where Moody was awesome. He was like just on a heater for a few minutes in the 4th. And then Kerr pulls him and things fall apart for them. And they have lost a lot of games in that crazy fashion, man, this year. The Kings game, the Clippers game, this one. It is an established trend. And now you have this game where it's not just that Kuminga was playing well, and he was, by the way, as Steve said, supposed to come back into the game according to his traditional rotations, which he is normally too rigidly married to, I would say. But when the Warriors go up by 18, with 6:51 left. From that point forward, they went 1 of 11 from the field, and they only attempted 2 shots in the paint. So it's not just that Kuminga was playing well and they played horribly without him. Who was the one guy, Logan, who specifically had been bulldozing his way to the rim at will, had 5 restricted area makes in this game, is the one next level athlete rim pressurer on your team who can challenge that Denver interior defense and put some pressure on them? It's Jonathan Kuminga. And you leave him off the floor and you settle for a bunch of tough shots and you brick them and you allow this lead to slip away. So this has been really disappointing from Steve Kerr. I love Steve Kerr, but I think that he has bungled the rotations repeatedly this year. I think it has cost them several games. And I also think you've never looked at Steve necessarily as a brilliant X's and O's guy. Now, I do think he deserves credit for seeing the vision with Steph, not as a traditional pick and roll heavy point guard, but by installing this motion offense and weaponizing him to the utmost extent off ball. That, I think, was a great broad vision that Steve had and instituted. But I would say his greatest strength as a coach has always been his personality management and his mindset, his ability to communicate with these guys as a player's coach. And I think his attitude has taken a turn for the worse this year. And this game to me is a reflection of that. He seems very externally focused. Like, Jokic does that dumb little flail where he thinks that Pods hooks him or pushes off or something. And Kerr is like going at Jokic as they head to timeout verbally, being like, hey, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And it's just a weird thing for him to be so latched onto and seemingly obsessed with, because there's so much flailing and foul grifting and all sorts of stuff like that from stars today in the NBA. You never see an opposing coach just like going at the other team's star. Nobody likes it, but it is part of the game at this stage. And that's after, of course, he went on that tirade after the Christmas Day game, which was more understandable. But it just feels like this is a guy who has always preached joy as being the central tenet of his philosophy. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of joy there right now. It feels like a guy who is angry. And that is just the vibe for this entire Warriors team. When you think about Klay's frustrations, when you think about what Draymond has been going through, when you think about now these Kuminga reports where he's saying that he's lost faith, or sources close to him are saying that he's lost faith in Steve Kerr and his ability to develop him. That is a big problem that this team has. And then it's compounded by the fact that they cannot guard big teams, as you mentioned. We know this, but good God, I mean, Jokic, this time they were dealing with him in single coverage. He just got whatever he wanted. He and AG combined for 64 points on 24 of 33 shooting. Yes, they're down Draymond, but they are at such a deficit there. And Steph struggled late in this one. And I definitely do not put the lion's share of the blame for their issues this year on him. He's still a top 5 guy to me, but he hasn't been quite the same as he was last year. He's taking 7% of his shots at the rim, just not getting there at all. And I think part of that is perhaps just a stylistic choice to conserve his energy. The guy's 35 years old, but it does limit his peak value when he is that hesitant getting to the rim at all. He has not been the same impactful playmaker that we're used to from him. He has gone from a 94th percentile pick and roll scorer in terms of efficiency to 64th. And so there's a lot of things that went wrong last night that are reflective of things that are fundamentally wrong with this team. And they are far away. So with that Kuminga report now coming out, who would you prioritize, Logan, if you were the Warriors? Is it Kuminga? Is it Steve Kerr? Which window is it? What's your take on that?
That's a phenomenal question. I'm on the side of straddling the fence a little bit. What do you... Well, I want to be clear about this. If it all depends on what value you would get back. I would value Kuminga. I think Kuminga's a stud. I would do everything in my power to hold on to Jonathan Kuminga because I don't know what kind of value you would get back for a player like him. Like, I just think down the road he's going to be a beast. Defensively, he's so freaking athletic. And even if he doesn't reach that offensive peak that we envision for him, you know, being that kind of consistent bulldozer night to night, even if he doesn't, the jump shot doesn't come along, Kuminga is going to be a great role player with what he can do defensively on the glass, hustling. I wouldn't want to give up Kuminga. I would probably shop Moody, I guess. If Moody has value, I don't know, man. Kuminga would not be the guy that I give up. And I would try to straddle the fence, Carson. You as a Dubs fan can probably say better. I'm cool with straddling the fence this season and riding this thing out and seeing what the Warriors can do, making a move at the deadline. I would probably see if I could move CP, Moody, and a pick or something along those lines, and see if that moves the needle for any team. You're a Dubs fan, though. I'll give you the same question. I mean, do you think they should pick a different timeline? Do you think they should stop straddling the fence? Where do you come down on all this?
I'm not a huge fan of the straddle the fence approach because that could alternately be referred to as the two timelines approach.
Yeah.
Which has been much maligned because guess what that meant? It meant holding on to James Wiseman as a pick and then holding on to him as a quote-unquote asset as it became clearer and clearer that this guy was not what they needed and his value diminished, and then spending another 2 lottery picks the next draft on Moody and Kuminga, who I like as basketball players, but were they immediately going to be ready to come in and contribute in a title run? That's just a lot to ask of any young basketball players. And of course, the Warriors still got their title in 2022, and God bless them for that. That was incredible. I think we are at a point where it is going to be incredibly painful to give up Jonathan Kuminga in any trade because he is playing so well. And what I've said about him since he was a prospect is this guy is a rare athlete. He is one of only a handful of dudes in the league who blend size and quickness and strength and vertical ability at this level. He is like every tool is in that 90th percentile sort of athlete, and that's pretty crazy. And he is starting to make the most of that. He is getting the rim at will. He's playing better all-around basketball. He's abusing mismatches out of the post. He's cutting well. There have been times this year even where his shot has looked good. I don't really buy into that as a consistent strength of his. But if you're going to hold on to Jonathan Kuminga, and that is going to be the reason that you don't trade for a Lowry Markkanen if you can make that package happen, then why do you even have Steph Curry? Like, seriously, why do you have Steph Curry? And I understand that it's additionally painful because I don't think that moving for Lowry Markkanen makes them a title frontrunner. I don't think it makes them better than the Denver Nuggets, that's for sure. I don't think it makes them better than the Milwaukee Bucks or the Boston Celtics. Not sure it makes them better than the Timberwolves or the Thunder. But it takes them from this thoroughly mediocre team that they are right now into at least a very good one that now has more size in the front court, that now has more really high-end offensive skill, that has another top 30 player who fits really well in their system. And I think you have to do that if you have Steph Curry and if you are still committed to at least trying to win with Steph Curry and maybe giving yourself a prayer of an outside shot. Like, I don't think that team wins the title. But I think that is a team now that, okay, can be in the Western Conference Finals. And once you're there, maybe Nikola Jokic gets injured, God forbid. But you are at least giving yourself that little bit of a puncher's chance that I don't think that they have right now. I would still do that. But I understand if you don't want to at this point. My question then is just, why are you straddling the line? Are you giving up on this window? Because if you're giving up on this window, then you got to give up on it, which I don't think you can do. I don't think you can ever trade a Steph Curry. I don't think you can give up on this core until they tell you, hey, we're done. But straddling the line doesn't work.
Yeah, you don't ever want to toe the line. It's like whatever that old adage is, it's indecision will lead you to, a life of unhappiness. If you sit there and it's, should I do this? Should I do that? Well, what turns out is you wasted the time making the decision and you wasted the resources.
Carmelo Soprano once wisely said, a bad decision is usually better than indecision. That's not exactly what she said, but that's the sentiment of it.
That is the gist. I wanted to ask you, as our esteemed basketball historian, Carson, is there any historical precedent for this in the league's history where a team has won a title, has these young assets, and this is just off the top of your brain, so I don't mean to put you on the spot here. Is there any team that you can remember in NBA history that has either suffered because they tried to toe the line or they have been successful in spite of towing the line? Are there any teams that come to the top of your brain that are in a similar boat to the Warriors?
That's a really good question. The one team that I can think of that sort of tried to do this transition from one dynasty to the next was the Larry Bird Celtics. Of course, they drafted Len Bias, tragically died. But then they had after that, and this is insanely tragic because he also died, but Reggie Lewis, who popped up as this all-star talent who potentially was going to help in that transitional period. But I can't think of a time that it's ever worked when a
Mhm.
team has just said, all right, well, we are absolutely contending for titles right now, but we're also developing this young core and we're just going to go immediately into contending again. That doesn't happen. And the reality is it's not good for a young player, especially a project like Kuminga, where upside is the selling point, to put him in a role from the jump on a team that is trying to contend. And if you make young guy mistakes, you're not going to play. And when you are out there on the floor, you're not figuring things out and seeing what you can be as a ball handler and having this opportunity. It's play your role, cut away from the ball, defend at a high level with high effort. You're put in this box. And that's another reason that the whole 2 timeline thing isn't conducive, because you're trying to make a Jonathan Kuminga 2 things at once, both this immediate contributor and this long-term high upside prospect, while you are deliberately inhibiting him from figuring the things out that could potentially unlock that ceiling.
And so my follow-up question for you, you've already kind of made this clear, but your stance is the Warriors should go in on this title window until the wheels fall off.
I think yes, even though it's tough to refer to it as a title window right now because the odds are long no matter what they do. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is a really good basketball player. I just don't think you can prioritize him over Steph Curry. And I don't think that he'll be ever as good as Lauri Markkanen is right now, honestly, just because I think that highly of Markkanen. So I would continue making win now moves until the wheels fall off, and you just have to throw in the towel, and Steph Curry's gone. And I wouldn't fire Kerr either, for what it's worth. I think you at least give him the year, because I think you can't fire Steve Kerr. If that's what Steph wants, then okay. But as long as that's not what Steph wants, as long as that's not what Draymond wants, you can't do it, man. Like, these are your guys. You have to be all in for these guys until the bitter end. And maybe the bitter end is closing in. But you can't give up all hope just yet, in my opinion, when there are still moves that can be made.
If that happens, Steve Kerr would be a Laker in about 48 hours, maybe less.
That would be insane mind games by LeBron and by Steve Kerr. Real quick before we move on from this game, Logan, we talked so much about what went wrong for the Warriors. Nikola Jokic did hit probably the shot of the year, though. This is another funny thing from Kerr, dude. I think Kerr just hates Jokic, because in the post-game presser, I saw this clip where he was just talking about, like, the keys, and he didn't mention Jokic, and then he referred to Peyton Watson's shot as the shot of the game. Very strange angst from Steve, who is normally zen. I mean, yeah, sure, he'll get a little bit fired up on the bench, but generally a very gracious guy. I was surprised by that. Do you think Jokic is the best clutch scorer in basketball?
Final point on the Kerr thing. It is also a little bit like the pot calling the kettle black, because he did the thing the other day. I don't know if you saw that report where he was talking to Klay Thompson about getting rid of the bad energy that Klay was bringing to the locker room. And it's, I don't know, to me it's just a little ironic that Steve wants to point the finger when he has also been part of the issue there.
He's Mr. Joy. Literally, that is the first thing. He has his 4 tenets, and it's like joy, compassion, competition. I don't remember the other one. Collaboration, probably something with a C. And he's Mr. Bitter right now.
Very uncharacteristic. It is weird, though. I mean, yeah, shot of the night was the half-court heave that Jokic just...
Yeah, maybe that was the shot of the night, Steve.
That's touch, man. That's just touch, dude. Damn, that's so buttery. Like,
settle down.
Dude, to cock back from that far into just...
To cock back after that? After you were making those noises? Watch yourself, buddy.
Man, dude. Jokic is nasty. I think he is, man. We talk about it. The other 3 guys that I sexy, I don't know, man. You insert whatever you want in there. The other 3 guys that I wrote down are 3 of the clutchest guys ever. MJ, LeBron, and Kobe were the other 3 guys that I wrote down. And
wow. You took this all time. I just meant in the NBA today.
Oh, in the NBA today. Foxy's been on a burner. Foxy's been on an absolute burner.
So to be clear, it's Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant,
De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I would put Jokic in that pantheon all time, guys. If we're just talking about this year, Foxy would probably be my other. Like, he's been so good in the clutch. Granted, it wasn't Fox that finished the game against Orlando the other night. What a classic. If you guys watched, I hope you didn't miss. That was an awesome game. Malik Monk went stupid in that game, man.
They don't want you to know, Logan, that he is leading the NBA in clutch points per game. Of all dudes who have played at least 10 of them.
And I have to stop because at some points in the game, I'm like, Malik, pass the ball. Malik, De'Aaron, pass it. And Malik just gets that little bend where he turns the corner, man, gets to the rack, and he's hitting you with that jelly left or that jelly right. It's going in, man. The Kings have a nasty, potent duo of closing games, but I don't think anybody holds a candle to Jokic. The touch with range, and that's what I'll point to, is the shot the other night just points to. I mean, that is such a tough fucking shot to make, man. Excuse my French. Like, to just walk in to pull from half. That's just Jokic's touch, man. I mean, we don't have to berate you with the numbers that we always do. If you've been around Nerd Sesh, you know it. 70% on touch shots, on floaters, on the interior. And when you weaponize that with his strength, the physicality, the quality of shot that he produces on the low block, it's just unstoppable. I think he is. For my money, I don't know if there's anybody else. But you, as our resident Malik Monk enthusiast, he is probably the best clutch scorer in the league, correct?
Yeah, I think that it's got to be Malik when you consider the blend of the twitchiness, the quickness with the big-time pull-up shooting. Jokic makes a case because he is just one of the most ridiculous, difficult shot makers that we have ever seen. Off balance, crazy contested. His touch is unbelievable. I think I would probably lean Luka here, though. Because I think he has a lot of those same traits where it's like, okay, this guy is just a ridiculous, tough shot maker because he has that same just supernatural touch. But then he has the advantage that most of the great clutch scorers are dudes who can initiate from the perimeter, who are very comfortable handling. And of course, Jokic is super comfortable handling for a 7-footer, but is he going to create separation as easily? Is he going to just easily walk into a step back like a Luka Doncic can? No, that is something that is reserved for perimeter players, and that's why they are normally your closers. And Jokic is an exception to be bringing the ball up the floor at all in a situation like this. But it's that blend of the perimeter shot creation off the bounce with incredible difficult shot making from anywhere on the floor. Luka has given us so many unbelievable clutch moments. I think he's probably number one for me, but Jokic is on that short list. And in terms of bigs, yeah, it's not close. He is number one, and he's probably number one in NBA history. Shout out to Dirk as well, but God, Jokic is something else in those situations. Logan, we have to talk about the LA Clippers because they have been on an extended heater, 13-2 in their last 15. And we checked in on them a bit ago when they started to reel these wins off and gave them some props. But who do you think deserves the most credit for this dramatic turnaround that we've seen from the Clippers?
I think a lot of guys on this team deserve credit, but it starts with Kawhi Leonard. You mentioned over the last 15. Kawhi over the last 15, 28, 6 and 4, 60, 51, 95 splits, absurd. Yeah. I believe 72% true shooting over that stretch. Over 1.5 steals per game, nearly a block a night, and he's been remarkably efficient, just 1.6 turnovers per game. Kawhi Leonard, point blank, is playing some of the best basketball of his career this season, which is pretty remarkable considering how great he was in 2016. He's shooting a career high from the field, 52.3%. He's having his second best season ever from behind the arc, shooting nearly 44% from deep, and he's having his most efficient overall season ever with a true shooting of 63.4%. I mean, we already know that Kawhi is one of the best defensive perimeter players in the world, but, he's so good creating instant offense off ball. That's one of my favorite things about Kawhi is how he doesn't need the ball in his hands, how he is so complimentary. He's averaging 1.46 points per possession on handoffs. He's in the 98th percentile there. He's in the 92nd percentile of spot-up players and the 92nd percentile of cutters this season. He's shooting 49% on catch-and-shoot threes. That's the fifth most efficient mark in all of the NBA. Like, Kawhi just gets to his spots effortlessly. If it is curling around a screen, if it's just getting a rock, like Kawhi just can get to that elbow, can get into that mid-range, and it's just an unblockable, unstoppable shot, it feels like. Like, you just cannot stop him getting there. And then when he does have to go cook by himself on ball, he's been unstoppable there. He's a 94th percentile pick-and-roll ball handler scoring this season. He's an 89th percentile isolation scorer. And Carson brought this one up. The miscellaneous
Yeah.
the miscellaneous buckets. I think that is the funniest category. He's 83rd percentile is a miscellaneous bucket this year.
Miscellaneous with it.
Getting miscellaneous with it, man. Credit to the other guys on the roster. Harden, 25 and 10, 67% true shooting. PG, great defense, 23-5 and 4 on 67% true shoot or 62% true shooting. Those numbers are both over the last 15. Big credit to Big Zoo. The Clippers have a 117 defensive rating over the last 15. That's tied just 17th in the league. But they go from the number 8 defense this year to the number 23 defense with Zubats on and off the floor. He's been a huge difference maker. He's holding players 12% below their average field goal percentage inside 6 feet. It's a lot of different things. It has a lot to do with the offense, but it starts with Kawhi Leonard, man, who is – and it's been like this. I don't know why people act like we're surprised. I don't want to act like I'm surprised. When Kawhi's healthy, he is still one of the handful of best players on planet Earth, and he's proving it again this year. Kawhi's playing some of the best basketball of his career, and – it starts with him with this Clippers turnaround, man. He's playing like one of the best players on planet Earth.
He's playing like that because he is, Logan. I said before this year, Kawhi might still be a top 5 dude in the league for me when he's healthy. I do think that he is the best wing in the league, period. Give me him over Jason Tatum. Give me him over Kevin Durant.
Over LeBron.
When he is healthy. I don't consider LeBron a wing. LeBron is
big.
LeBron. He's a point guard. He's a big. He's whatever the hell he wants to be. He's LeBron James. I'm talking about dudes who you think of as, he's a small forward. He's a wing. Tatum's like a 4 in today's NBA. But that archetype, that assassin scorer who's going to bring you some two-way value as well. Kawhi, you mentioned the efficiency. I mean, 60, 51, 95 splits. Come on, brother. He hasn't lost a game since November, Logan. He's missed a couple. When the Clippers have lost in this 15-game stretch, it's because Kawhi wasn't out there. And the reason that I say he's number 1 for me is he takes Kevin Durant's all-time great pull-up jump shooting, and then he takes the fact that Jason Tatum is a more physical, stronger wing, and he blends those two things. He gets to his spot on the floor whenever he wants, and maybe he's not getting all the way to the rim, but he is bullying you to his spot 10 feet away from it. And then he hits those turnarounds with insane efficiency. Or, I mean, the guy is shooting almost 50% on catch and shoot threes this year. Like, he's just an unstoppable scorer. And that's why his playoff production over the last 5 years, every single time he's been there, he has been insane. He's been as good as anybody on the planet in those playoff settings. It's him, Luka, and Jokic. Those have been the best 3 playoff scorers over the last half decade. He is the thing that scares me about this team. So if I'm giving the most credit, it's Kawhi. All of the big 3 is playing well. The entire starting 5 is playing well. Zubats with his two-way stuff. Harden has adjusted to this role so well, and he does add another valuable dimension offensively with another dude who can get his bucket and another dude who facilitates at a higher level than anybody else on this team. The starting 5 has a plus 16.6 net rating.
Wow.
And they're still just 18th defensively in this stretch, but they've been a top 3 offense. They've been outstanding in adding Harden. He does deserve some credit for that. But it's Kawhi. He's the best player on the floor. He's one of the best players on the planet. And if it comes down to a playoff series, having James Harden is going to be nice. It's going to be nice to have a guy you can lean on as your 3rd best player. But we also know that he can fade, and we know that he can regress in those situations. And if somebody is going to dominate that series, outplay a Kevin Durant, outplay whoever the best player on the other team is, it's going to be Kawhi Leonard. And I have the utmost faith that he can still do that when healthy. And health as a whole, honestly, deserves a large portion of the credit for the Clippers. Kawhi's been out there consistently. PG's been out there consistently. James Harden's been out there consistently. That's been really great for them. But Kawhi is number 1. This did make me remember, Logan. You remember when Chris Broussard asked if James Harden was acoustic? He, of course, used much harsher and more distasteful language.
Was he regarded, I think is what Chris Broussard played. Was he regarded?
Yeah, and the answer is James Harden understands his situation and is playing well and is embracing it.
Hey, he is the system.
He's not the system, actually, is the hilarious thing. He's adjusted, and he's fit in, and it's worked nicely. These guys play well together. They are better than certainly they looked out of the gate, and I think that they're better than I even expected, and I hope that they stay healthy because, man, there's a lot of teams that are figuring into this fun playoff race out west. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for us here today. Hope that you have enjoyed. If you did, the good news is there's plenty more Nerd Sesh content. You can find all of our full shows on the Nerd Sesh YouTube page. You can also listen to the shows across audio platforms. You can follow us across social media, TikTok and Instagram at Nerd Sesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. And if you want, you can join our Discord at the link tree in our social media bios to just become part of our community, talk NBA, NFL with us. And you can check out our merch. Logan's wearing the hat. We've got the flags behind us. We've got shirts. We've got hoodies, all of that. Also at our link tree and at thevolume.com. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I have been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.